Welcome, everyone. Go ahead and grab a seat. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're looking at a truly pivotal, catastrophic year. You see, the 1930s had actually begun with this grand, highly optimistic hope for global disarmament and lasting peace. It was known as the spirit of Locarno. But I'm here to tell you that by 1937, those dreams were completely, utterly dead, left in absolute tatters. Our thesis for today's lecture is stark. 1937 is the year the illusion of global peace was irrevocably shattered. So let's run through our syllabus for today. We're going to map out 5 distinct regional crises that collectively plunge the globe into a growing panic. We'll cover the shattered peace, the internal terror of the Soviet Union, fascist aggression in Europe, Japan's war in China, and finally, how the world's democracies responded with isolationism and appeasement. All right, Module 1, the shattered peace of 1937, the definitive end of global disarmament. You know, as historians, we really have to look at the whole global board at once. By 1937, the initial hopes of the decade were being actively destroyed by the coordinated aggression of Japan, Italy, and Germany. But the world? Well, the world was often looking the other way. In the spring of that year, moviegoers were absolutely transfixed by footage of Germany's Hindenburg airship going up in flames in New Jersey, leaving 36 people dead. But while the public stared at that burning wreckage, far darker, systemic geopolitical disasters were quietly brewing, disasters that would soon claim millions. It's a sobering reminder of just how quickly global stability can unravel while everyone is distracted by the headline of the day.
Moving on to Module 2, Paranoia in the Soviet Union, Stalin's internal war.
So seeing threats from literally every direction, dictator Joseph Stalin pushed forward with this rapid crash industrialization. But right alongside it, he launched a massive, terrifying internal purge. The instrument of this terror was the NKVD, the Soviet secret police. What started as just a manifestation of Stalin's own intense personal paranoia rapidly escalated into a nationwide moral panic. It was a literal witch hunt for enemies within, targeting suspected political rivals, class enemies, even foreign agents. The NKVD arrested hundreds of thousands of people. And the tragic reality? Most of these victims were entirely innocent, but they were coerced or brutally tortured into signing confessions, and then they were either executed or exiled to the vast, brutal network of labor camps we know as the Gulag. And for the most prominent victims, Stalin actually orchestrated these elaborate public spectacles known as the Moscow show trials. We're talking about old Bolsheviks, guys who are actually Stalin's former allies, standing up and confessing to wildly improbable crimes before being taken away to be shot. And the sheer strategic madness of this era, it is just staggering. Stalin deliberately targeted his own military. He eliminated thousands of Red Army officers, including Marshal Mikhail Tukhachevsky, a man widely regarded as Russia's most brilliant military theorist. He systematically wiped out his own high command right on the eve of a global conflict. The estimated death toll of these purges sits somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000 people. Though, honestly, no precise figure is truly possible. To put that into perspective, that's the population of a major city just wiped off the map. As students of history, we have to view this not just as an act of incalculable human suffering, but as an act of immense strategic self-harm. Stalin intentionally deprived the Soviet Union of its best minds and its most experienced commanders. Let's transition to Module 3, Fascist Aggression in Europe. Spain, Ethiopia, and Axis ambitions. Meanwhile, fascist aggression was accelerating rapidly on multiple fronts. Down in East Africa, brutal Italian reprisals massacred thousands of civilians to crush brave Ethiopian resistance. At the same time, horrors in Europe were commanding the world's attention. The Spanish Civil War was raging. Republican government forces held the capital, Madrid, but they were being besieged and bombed by nationalist rebels who had heavy backing from Nazi and fascist allies. In the spring, Germany's Condor Legion helped clear the way for a nationalist offensive by notoriously bombing the town of Guernica. More than 200 civilians were killed. Guernica triggered this massive international outcry because it was a terrifying presage. It showed the world a future of war, a conflict where bombers would simply pulverize civilian cities into rubble.
And all of this unchecked aggression allowed the Axis powers to heavily consolidate by late 1937. Italy joins the Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany and Japan, and Mussolini formally quits the League of Nations. But the most alarming development, that happens in November, in Berlin. Hitler meets with his war minister, foreign minister, and the heads of his armed forces, and for the very first time, explicitly shares his secret plan to annex Austria and Czechoslovakia. His stated goal is to provide living space and economic self-sufficiency for the German people. Hitler openly acknowledges this is going to trigger a major war with Britain and France, and he specifically targets 1943 or 1944 for that war. The clock was officially ticking.
Which brings us to Module 4, Japan's War in China. The Asian theater explodes. Now, to really understand this explosion, we have to look at the buildup. Japan's successful prior conquest of resource-rich Manchuria had created this massive economic boom, and that emboldened a military elite who basically dominated Japanese politics and demanded even more imperial expansion. This volatile situation finally snaps on July 7th with the Marco Polo Bridge incident outside Peking, where a minor dispute over a missing Japanese soldier erupts into a deadly firefight. China's leader, Chiang Kai-shek, announces a war of self-defense, but the Japanese forces are just virtually unstoppable. Peking falls within a month. Chiang tries to disrupt their momentum by attacking the Japanese garrison in Shanghai, drawing 1 million troops into a brutal 3-month battle. Much of Shanghai is reduced to ruins, and by late October, Chinese forces are forced to withdraw. By November, Japanese forces are entering Nanking. And what follows is, quite simply, one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century, known as the Rape of Nanking. Desensitized by combat and fired up by racist propaganda, Japanese soldiers terrorized the city for 6 weeks, looting, torturing, murdering. 30,000 Chinese prisoners of war were shot in mass executions. And the civilian death toll was even higher, with estimates ranging from 100,000 to 200,000 dead. These atrocities absolutely appalled the world. They were widely condemned by the League of Nations and the USA. But once again, there was absolutely no physical action taken to back up those diplomatic words. It's incredibly fascinating to see how the 2 major European dictators strategically played this Chinese crisis to their own geopolitical advantage. Adolf Hitler watched the Chinese rout and decided Japan was clearly the superior partner in Asia, so he completely cuts off Germany's long-standing military aid to China. Joseph Stalin, on the other hand, took the exact opposite approach. He actually stepped up military aid to China and signed a non-aggression pact with Chiang's government. His gamble was that a strong Chinese resistance would tie down Japan's military and deter them from ever attacking the Soviet Far East. All right, this brings us to our final lecture module for today, Isolationism and Appeasement, the Democratic Paralysis. So, we've seen the aggression, the horrific atrocities, the secret war plans. A huge question naturally arises. Why didn't the world's democratic powers effectively intervene? Well, the answer is a systemic, crippling political paralysis across the board. In Great Britain, you have the new Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who avows himself a man of peace, actively pursuing a policy of compromises, what he called appeasement. In France, Prime Minister Léon Blum leads a coalition that essentially fractures and paralyzes the government specifically over the issue of whether to send aid to the Spanish Republicans. And over in the United States, President Franklin D. Roosevelt is completely boxed in by a fiercely isolationist electorate and a strict neutrality act passed by Congress that flat out bans selling arms to warring nations. Roosevelt, however, was deeply, deeply alarmed. In his famous Chicago speech, he warned of a new reign of terror and international lawlessness. He famously declared that the very foundations of civilization are seriously threatened, and insisted there is no escape from international anarchy in mere isolation or neutrality. But despite his incredibly clear warnings, he was entirely out of step with the U.S. Congress and the American public, who simply refused to budge from non-intervention. Knowing full well a European war was looming, FDR managed to squeeze a brilliant, subtle loophole into the Neutrality Act. It was known as the cash and carry exemption. Under these 3 specific steps, U.S. companies could sell weapons to a nation at war, but only if they paid up front in cash and shipped the weapons themselves. Now, Roosevelt intentionally designed this knowing that if a European war broke out, only Britain and France would actually have the naval capacity and the funds to make use of this exemption. It was a really smart, albeit desperate preparation by a leader who could see that peace was failing. I want to dismiss the class today by posing this final, highly provocative thought. Can mere isolation or neutrality ever truly survive in a world consumed by international anarchy? By the end of 1937, with millions dead or displaced in China, Spain in absolute ruins, Stalin purging his own ranks, and Hitler literally drawing up timelines for invasion, the answer was becoming grimly obvious. Global war was no longer just a possibility, it was a certainty. Reflect on this as you review your notes tonight.